Hi guys.
Hi. Hey, hey.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hi Jeff.
What's new?
Hey Quay.
Hello.
Hey.
Sorry, finished my previous meeting and joined this one.
Yeah, it's all AI.
Yeah, my previous meeting was also about AI. That seems to be what I've been talking about these days.
Amazing.
How is everyone? I think everybody here all went to the GraphQL Conf, right? Hey, Ori. Stress soft.
Hi
It's pretty
Benji.
real stuff. All right. I think we pretty much have everyone, as probably some people are trickling in. I will get us started on this. So, all right, it's gonna be my first time hosting a working group. So nervous about it. But so yeah, so thank you so much everyone for joining the very first GraphQL working group meeting. So as part of the agreement, if you are attending this working group today, you are actually agreeing to our membership agreement, participation and contribution guidelines, and code of conduct. So if you don't know what those are, or you need to refresh your memory, there's a link in our agenda. That's the first thing in our agenda. And also that you are agreeing that these meetings will be published to YouTube, and then we may use LLM and AI to summarize the content. And with that being said, I want to move us to the introduction of attendees. Because it is the first meeting, I also want to give everybody like maybe 10 seconds or so to introduce, like give us a little bit background of where you're from and why you're joining this AI working group. And then, so the order of how we're going to do the intro is from the agenda. We have a table there, so we'll just go from that table order. So I'll get us started. Hi, everyone. My name is Koei. I work at Meta as a software engineer. I've been contributing to the GraphQL open source in the last couple of years. And because recently our work has centered around GraphQL and AI, I want to continue this conversation, like both from the meta perspective as well as from the open source, and see what we can do to make it work better. And I'll give it to Jeff.
Hey, folks. Jeff Aoyama here from Apollo. I represent Apollo on the GraphQL Foundation's governing board. This group is something I'm really excited about, and thanks to Koei for getting it together. This is sort of a continuation from conversation at GraphQL Conf in September. But really, I think the culmination of what a lot of us see, which is GraphQL and a lot of the LLM powered experiences that we've been using have a lot of complementary aspects to them. And so let's explore that and figure out what we can do for the community in order to surface best practices, figure out tooling, things like that. So really excited. And at Apollo, my day-to-day is managing some teams, our open source clients teams, as well as our onboarding team. Yeah. And sorry, I don't have the agenda open in front of me. So whoever's next,
Benji.
pass it to you.
Hey folks, my name is Benji. I'm a community-funded open source maintainer. And also a member of the GraphQL Technical Steering Committee. And I obviously care a lot about GraphQL. And I think GraphQL is also incredibly well suited for AI use cases. It's designed to be used by people, and LLMs are generally good at things that are designed to be used by people. So it's very good from a context usage point of view and various other benefits. And yeah, I just want to make sure that GraphQL is growing in the right direction to support humans and AIs alike.
That's awesome. And then Michael.
Hi guys, I'm Michael. I'm one of the founders of JCream. We're doing a lot of GraphQL in the .NET ecosystem. And I'm also a GraphQL TSC, so I'm generally interested in all GraphQL everywhere. And from a company perspective, we are very interested into the synergy of GraphQL and AI. And I hope that this group can make GraphQL more AI friendly. That's from me.
Awesome. I think Watson didn't join yet. So, and then similarly, Emily is also not here. I'll move to Thore.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm Thor. So I'm software engineer
Sorry
and
for
machine learning.
pausing.
And oh, hey. Yeah, I had to talk about GraphQL and MCP. So we also developed an MCP-based, Rust-based GraphQL server, and yeah, experimented a bit on validation testing, and yeah, excited to see how we can natively support it. Yeah, GraphQL.
And then Stephen is also not here yet. Is Troy here? I think
Yes.
so. Yeah.
Hello. Hello, I'm Troy. I work at Zalando as a senior software engineer. And we recently introduced a fashion assistant at Zalando, which is a chat-based interface where people can query, receive product recommendations based on queries. And we are looking how to integrate it with our GraphQL main service. So that's why I'm interested in that topic.
Awesome. And Alex?
Yep. Hi, everyone. I work with Kuwait at Meta. Basically, super interested in how we get LLMs to write the best GraphQL that they can write. So we're going to talk about this later today. But yeah, I'm super excited about what we get to in the work group.
All right. And then Andre?
Hello, I'm Andre. I'm an architect at Atlassian. Atlassian does a bunch of GraphQL, like a ton of it, like most of our APIs are GraphQL at this point. And we also do a bunch of AI, so that kind of goes hand in hand. And like, I'm interested in seeing both like how we can make better use of like those APIs with LLM tooling. And I think we talked about this like during GraphQL Conf, how we get AIs to write less crappy GraphQL, because that seems useful as well.
Yep. And then Abhinand?
Hi guys, I'm Abhinan from Stolby in Kerala, India. I've been using GraphQL and GraphQL Federation for past a few years, 3 years, and have recently been started building agentic systems and working with the Apollo MCP server. So I'm keenly interested in how AI in GraphQL ecosystem grows. So yeah.
That's awesome. And then we do have several people who were not in the main branch because I guess there are merge conflicts. And then so Jeff and Rudra has reminded me of that. Let's sort all of that out later today. But in the meantime, I think we can, whoever hasn't go with the intro in the call here, please go ahead. Maybe I'll start with Uri or Dale. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dale. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Dale from Apollo GraphQL. I'm working on Apollo MCP server, which easily convert your GraphQL APIs or operations, GraphQL operations into MCP tools. We just released version 1.0 and marked it as GA. It's an exciting time. And I was just wondering like what is going on in the broader community. Yeah. So nice to meet you, everyone.
Who wants to go
Um,
next?
Yeah, I guess I can go next. So, hey everyone, I'm Mark. I work at Yelp. I lead all our GraphQL stuff. Yeah, we're pretty invested in GraphQL, and we're building a lot of AI products and using all that GraphQL tooling as well with MCP. So, yeah, I'm also very personally interested in, you know, spec changes to GraphQL itself. So, I'm very, very interested as to how we're going to evolve the state of GraphQL and AI in this meeting.
Awesome.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I'm an engineer on the GraphQL platform for Booking.com. Also really interested in seeing how we can better leverage AI to use the graph. We've been doing it at Booking for about a year now, and also how we can start to leverage AI to help us with schema design, best practices, those kind of items as well. So also we're just really interested in learning a bit more how the GraphQL community works. So, hi.
Then Rudra?
Hey everyone, I'm Rudra. I am on the GraphQL platform team at Block, and yeah, we are kind of exploring both how AI can help, GraphQL, and GraphQL can help AI. So both those sides for both internal and external use cases. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. Excited for this.
Awesome. I think Ori hasn't gone
Hi,
yet.
Uli from the Guild. Really excited to be here, and also love the format of a working group to solve something really, really important, I think, for all of us. I think some stuff to say about AI currently that I'm thinking of is I think there's like new types of applications that are going to be written, and maybe like it would be a new types of customers, like maybe it will be kind of a combination of agents and chatbots, but then also like components being rendered, and I feel like GraphQL is like uniquely suitable for those things, but we need to maybe figure out first. We are learning a lot from our customers, like what do they actually build with it right now, and then how we can best support it. Also, a thing that on our minds is how do we teach AI GraphQL in a good way? Like, how do we make sure, when you ask a certain agent about certain things about GraphQL, you get good answers? I think. And then like there's all kinds of already use cases that we get from people like linting and schema design to like how to expose your data in a certain way for agents, how to expose valuable information that all kinds of platforms that some people here are managing, like schema versions, schema usage. How can we expose all of those things to be valuable for developers as they develop AI, as they develop GraphQL? And also we got questions on like, now everyone is using so many agents, like how do you manage all of those? And maybe also their GraphQL can help, like just to manage and control traffic going out to AI solutions and products. So yeah, excited.
Awesome. I lost track. Ariana?
Hi, yeah, I'm Ariana. I'm fairly new to the development world, but the main tasks that I've been working on had to do with AI. So I'm very excited to see how this is gonna go today.
Awesome. Kenny, earlier I saw you were driving. Let us know if it's a good time for you to do the intro.
Yeah, no, I messed up on the time zones because I was in California when I set this meeting. So my schedule's off. But my name's Kenny. I am currently working at Marriott. I lead our GraphQL platform there. Be moving into our AI platform very shortly. So very interested in what we we come up with in this group, but moreover, I'm interested in, contributing to the open source community, which I haven't done much of in the past. So this is a new experience for me overall.
That's awesome. Steven?
Yeah, I'm Steven. I work at Netflix on our API platform team. And so I've been excited about how we can leverage our graph. We have a big federated graph, like 800 plus subgraphs. And so there's a lot of stuff there. And also internally for developer productivity and things, we're using a lot of LLM tools and building MCPs and things. And so it seems like it makes sense that we should be able to leverage all these these APIs we've been building. GraphQL as a language makes a lot of sense. It should fit, but there's still a lot to be figured out as well. So that's why we're here. Thanks.
All right. Joanna?
Hi, yeah, my name's Joanna. I'm a software engineer at a company called Trail in Munich in Germany. And yeah, we're an AI governance platform. So we both, I guess, use AI in our own application and then also work a lot with companies who are using AI for various purposes. Yeah, so I mean, we also use GraphQL, and I think I'm interested to see, I guess, how these things can go kind of hand in hand, and yeah, also get more familiar with how these working groups go in general. But it's really nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Welcome. Jens?
Hey, nice to meet some familiar faces here. Jens from WonderGraph. I think AI is a great opportunity for GraphQL to apply to a new topic. If you look, for example, at what we have accomplished with Federation, we have figured out how to move away from BFFs and how to enable with the GraphQL layer to have a single client speak to thousands of subsystems. So now we have a new sort of client, the agent, who wants to talk to thousands of subsystems. And now everybody wants to build MCP servers. For me, again, that is a backend to front end. So now the question is, okay, should we move back to the BFF, or should we just skip that step and leverage what we have established and learned with Federation? And the other part is, you can't just tell an LLM, hey, here's 5,000 REST APIs, or hey, here's our Netflix GraphQL schema with 7 billion types. Like that LLM might create a query that helps you, but it might also just hallucinate whatever. So I think there are great opportunities, but also challenges, and we need to figure out, for example, how to extend the GraphQL language so that we can fine tune context, and that just this whole picture fits together. And I mean, if you look at the trends on Google, the GraphQL trends are not going up, but AI trend is massively going up. So that's an opportunity for us, for the whole ecosystem to pick up on the trend and see can we leverage everything the vendors have built with this new wave. So yeah, I think it's good to explore this.
It's really awesome. Watson?
Thanks. Excited to be here. Sorry for popping up late. I've been pretty active in the AI community space in SF and talking a lot about GraphQL APIs as tools for agents in the past. So I'm really excited about this working group. I definitely agree there's some things that GraphQL could do to be a little bit more out there. And I think, the things like MCP and some of these protocols have really popped up because of the gaps that are in between really what's going on between agentic development and GraphQL. But I think there's a lot we have to offer. I'm excited to hear more in this community and help you all with that.
It's awesome. Amit?
Hi there, everyone. Sorry, my video's off. It's dinner time, so I've got a little 4-year-old running around at the moment. I work with Jens. I've just joined Wundergraph about a month ago or so, and I'm working on our MCP capabilities. I've also done a little talk at Nordic APIs last week, I think, about GraphQL and how useful it might be for agents. So I'm really interested in the space and helping to contribute with you all. Thanks.
And then Jerry.
Hey everybody, my name's Jerry. I work at Microsoft on the SQL Server team. My team's responsible for integrating AI capabilities into the data platform. And so my biggest connection to you guys is that I'm also the PM for Data API Builder, which deeply integrates with Michael's toolkit and libraries to make sure that we have a GraphQL endpoint exposed for SQL and for Microsoft Fabric. And so excited for what's happening here. We have a lot going on the MCP side right now too. So very excited to see what happens.
That's really
You guys
awesome.
have great insights, by the way. I don't want to try and add to that.
All right. Yeah. I'm super happy that I've seen a bunch of people from different backgrounds. Some of you are like kind of being in the GraphQL space for a very long time. Some of you just recently joined. And it's a mixture of background. You're looking for different things. Some are MCP related, and other are like code authorization, right? Schema design. I will move us to the next item, which is I'm seeking for 2 or 3 volunteers to help us take notes actually for this this working group. If anyone would like to say, please let this channel know. All right, thank you, Jeff. Anyone else? Thank you, Joanna. So the live notes, actually Benji helped us link in the live notes section. So feel free to go ahead and start editing there. And then before we get started with the agenda, the actual agenda of the today, actually we'll get to skip some. I want to give us a reminder that we still have the grants opening for key initiatives. So AI is definitely one of the key initiatives for GraphQL. If you are having some of the projects that require funding, please send us the proposals. We're happy to review and then get you guys supported. So there are 2 agenda items today. So the first one is actually like a continuation of discussion from the open community call at the GraphQL Conf. Can I get maybe a raise of hand of how many people went to that conference and then how many didn't? Okay. I think we actually have half and a half, which is like really good. So we have half of the people here who actually didn't went to the conference. I linked the open community call discussion items in the agenda as well. So if anyone who cannot access that doc, please let me know. I think let's spend about 10 minutes on this agenda items to my goal is so that we have some of the concrete work items out for the continued working group meetings from there on. And I did a little bit of restructuring based on our conversation in the open community call. So we have several topics, and let's just go through them one by one. And please chime in if you have more ideas or if you think like here are some of the good things that we can do from this group. So the first one is GraphQL for server-to-server communication. This is actually something that came up when we were talking about GraphQL is a great solution for MCPs and for models to get additional data from our backend servers in order to integrate. And then naturally this question comes up like, should GraphQL be the default protocol for service-to-service communication as well? And then there is also I think Amit, who is not here, was talking about how when we were doing the marketing of GraphQL, we can can we make it less focused on UI? If there's anyone who has additional insights they want to add here? Like, for example, why is it difficult for us today to say that GraphQL is server-to-server communication?
I can maybe maybe. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a extremely relevant point because this is what I am doing right now is unlocking our previously only our front end and mobile clients could talk to GraphQL, but we're unlocking it for service to service communication, specifically for AI agents and the AI products that we're building. Okay, two things, two reasons. Number one, auth is a big reason, and the like Facebook style of GraphQL resolvers are a very, very thin wrapper over your endpoints, and the endpoints are the place that do auth kind of as close to data egress as possible. That's great because that kind of like normalizes things, and then you can sign the viewer object or whatever, and you can like pretend to be a logged in user from a service. So that's great. Lots of people don't have that though, and hack around that with the auth directive, and kind of do it in the GraphQL layer. But like for us, and yeah, I think it's okay to say, like our internal endpoints didn't do any of that. All the auth is in the schema, and so if you have resolvers, there is a variety of like, does it do auth or not? So basically, like if your resolvers all do auth, then that's good. And if it does it in a normalized way, then that does allow it to be called either by the front end or by another service. And that service can create the viewer object and claim to be whoever you want to be. So that's like an important thing. And then the other is sort of maybe like a historical thing, which I kind of put in the Google Doc there, which was a very popular blog post from Mark Andre, like the sweet spot for GraphQL, and backend to backend was not one of those things. I think honestly, this AI stuff just changes it, and so maybe this is kind of a bit of an education thing. The state of clients, maybe we've been looking at like Python GraphQL clients, for example. So kind of getting some more popularity of those and making them kind of all. I don't want to go too deep into it because I know it's like a long meeting with a long agenda. So I'll pause there. But yeah, like maturity from those clients as well could be a bit better. But yeah, we're doing it. So.
Awesome. I will be sure to read about this GraphQL sweet spot blog post. I actually haven't saw that. And then Watson?
Yeah, just I think the UI connection piece is actually really important here. I think a lot of the service communication is also backend developers that typically write things to communicate with other backend services, and they kind of get driven towards like a React client or web client or a client type of experience where they're like, I'm just a Java developer. How do I just like make a Java GraphQL request super easy as like what this other stuff is? So I think there's also even just a layer of like historically that a lot of that content isn't there. So newer to GraphQL people kind of fall into this world and then they're like, I don't know.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And then it kind of also speaks to a lot of the syntax that we have. Sorry, I jumped in before Uri, of like polymorphism, right? How we do fragment spreads. So these syntax may not be super useful for service-to-service communication, but they were a core part of how we are selling GraphQL's expressiveness. Yeah, definitely makes sense. I think Uri first and then Mark, if I'm correct.
So I think if I remember the original discussion, I think we asked like why GraphQL isn't being like there were a couple of things there. One, it's using GraphQL for agents and for things like that, and the other question was for all specific types of use cases when you ask an LLM to like I don't know, bootstrap an app for me or bootstrap this code for me, what do they choose to use? I think in both cases, I would look at what they currently choose or what in general people choose today for service-to-service communication and why. Like gRPC, for example, which, usually when people reference that, they talk about like, a more efficient transport and things like that. But like, as we probably know here, like GraphQL is not tied to the transport. So maybe we can take all kinds of these ideas and show a GraphQL example of why, because I think in a lot of the minds of people here, we understand that, but I don't think there's a lot of content for that. I think Jens actually like created a bunch of cool blog posts about that, but I haven't seen here too many others talking about it.
Then Mark. Or Mark, was your hand earlier like
Yeah,
okay.
sorry, I lowered it. Sorry.
Gotcha. And Andre?
I would okay. So for server to server, I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily tag that as super related to AI. To some extent, like a large language model is still like a client. Server to server feels like a large part of the reason why server to server GraphQL isn't necessarily in the zeitgeist feels like it's tooling. There's like ample tooling around like REST, around like gRPC. There's like so much stuff that you can put like in between the pipes that lets you know how you're doing, like which things are getting called, like where does this go, like what is the profile for like this specific type of request, that it's really hard to compete with that. And so if you're being pragmatic about like what should I do with like these two services that need to speak to each other, then it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to have like, oh, I desperately want to use GraphQL, therefore I'm going to work around all of these issues, or am I just going to go and get the thing done? The other bit is like, in order to have that level of insight into like what exactly is happening in the pipe, with GraphQL, you need to like look at the actual payload and figure out like, what is this person asking of me? And Benji, yes, trusted documents like would make a difference in that. But also like if you actually have mutations that you need to run, like all that stuff ends up being like harder than it's a post, it's a put, it's something else. Like those things are just genuinely more complicated. And like, why would you want to make life more complicated for yourself? Also, and I'll say like, this is my last bit of this rant. For server to server comms, usually like you don't have the complexities of like, oh, the client might just want like blah, blah, and blah. Like server to server comms, it's like, yes, I will want the payload. I want to sync the whole thing. I want to like have a different endpoint that like does especially like distinctly this thing that I want to have done. A lot of the advantages of GraphQL don't really pan out as far as I can tell in server to server comms, and do they just make things complicated? That being said, again, I wouldn't necessarily join like LLM use cases and server to server at the hip. Like it feels like they're slightly more distinct, because for LLMs, what you kind of want is like, here's 2 megabytes of schema. Like figure out what data you want. You shouldn't give a hoot like which server you're talking to. Just like, again, there's complexities in that. There's like context that we need to take into account, but that feels like it's the power of GraphQL. The fact that like I don't need to parse through like 5 endpoints worth of like open API schemas.
Yeah, that's a great call out of separating the LLM communications with the more traditional service to service. And Jens?
So no, there is like event-driven architecture.
Oh
So
yes, sorry. I forgot. Steven, if you yep.
Oh, well, yeah, I think Andre articulated very similar to what I was thinking, but like the words that we use, we have a paved path for various things. And so GraphQL, in theory, can be useful for a lot of things, but for service to service, our paved path, it's built around gRPC for us. That's not to say we can't, we couldn't use GraphQL, but it's just, it comes down to the tooling and things like that. Now, that being said, this comes up a lot, increasingly more so. Teams ask, hey, can't we just, use the GraphQL endpoint? And we say, our general answer now is yes. It's just recognize that, we haven't invested in tooling around that. But the more that this becomes a focused use case for GraphQL, the better that tooling gets, on the other hand. And so on the one hand, I definitely agree that, you know, AI LLMs can be thought of as just a client for GraphQL. And so it's not quite the same as like microservices talking to each other. At the same time, it is, you know, there are some nuances, and it's different than a React app. And so like the way, you know, like the way Apollo client's built, for example, is different than the way an LLM is going to want to talk. UIs usually have like complex caching, local caching, and things. And so that, you know, once again though, that just comes down to tooling and having you know, well paved solutions around this use case.
Yes.
Yeah, so this comes from just the perspective of federation, not GraphQL in general, but so I think one main theme when we talk about GraphQL on the backend, I see with our customers is they actually very much prefer a federated approach where they have a query plan. When there's a client request and you know that you need to call a chain of other services, it is just much better to have a query plan and understand upfront the cost of the request, what services will we be calling, etc., etc. If you just keep calling other services through the GraphQL layer again in resolvers, then you will never really have a good understanding of like what's the cost of this request or any such thing. So I think that's more like at least from our perspective, it's more like an anti-pattern. There might be use cases where you really need that, but most of our users don't go that way. And the other part is, one thing we learned is that with federation, you kind of get like a declarative layer of authorization from a backend perspective. And what I mean is not authorization in the context of the user, but also in the context of the backend. Because if you're familiar with federation, there's a directive, it's called requires. So that means one field can say, I need another field so that I can resolve my data. So I can declare a dependency. And by making it declarative, and you can look on the Wundergraph blog, I've recently written about this topic. By making it declaratively, you can have an opportunity for your compliance teams to look at the schema and see that one service requires a field from another service. So if that is a very sensitive field, you can now understand that another team, another services, that information crosses a team or a service boundary, versus when you just let services call however they want, you don't have that declarativeness in terms of service dependencies. And I think in that sense, again, it's much easier to just have like a federated layer and don't call GraphQL subgraphs directly.
Makes sense. So more declarative and more transparency, and also improves auditability for
Yeah,
the
exactly.
different services.
You know what, for us, one of the biggest challenges is if you stick authorization logic into resolvers or anywhere below, it is almost impossible to audit it or to look at the schema and say, oh, I know with this user agent, these are the rules that apply. So
Gotcha. Makes sense. I'm hearing a lot of like good ideas, and I want to make a call to action here, which is like a lot of people have hinted, is we should have maybe a series of blog posts which we can like debate about the use cases of GraphQL for server-to-server communication. And some of the things was maybe there are certain use cases you don't want to use GraphQL for that because you know specifically this is the ones that I am going to. But there are other use cases like for MCP or for like federated schema that we do want to use it. Do I have volunteers here who would like to take on maybe one or two pieces of the blog post? And then I think Benji would be here to help for. Okay, thank you so much, Jens. And then anyone else? And thank you, Mark. All right, so we'll get started with maybe two blog posts seeded. So Yes, that's what I mean, Benji. You can provide support of like guiding us, like how do we kind of start this, what's a review process, and things like that. In the interest of time, I want to move us to the second kind of discussion items in the open community call, which I summarized it as LLM authorizing GraphQL related code, whether it is queries, like you can do it in different approaches, right? So you can authorize that GraphQL code, and that literally is the code that someone wants to commit, right? That is like, okay, my vibe coding scenario. Or you can have LLM authorizing that code in the context of that's my MCP calls parameter, which I will then issue this request to actually go to the backend to fetch some data and then have that come back. There are a couple of challenges, I think, we had. And Thor, actually, you are the one who presented this in the GraphQL Conf about schema being too large. How do we reduce the context from that schema to help us understand what are the code that we can generate? I want to give the floor open to see if there are more thoughts from here. Anyone else?
I mean, on schema discovery processes. So yeah. In general, so like quick summarization was like, okay, you just query for the fields that you need to execute a query, and then like recursively go in depth through that. But it's like hard to limit the context of like how deep do you fetch and not overwhelm the context of the LM. But on the other hand, it's like a trade-off between like overwhelming or being like precise enough for the tool calls that you need. So it's like a lot of back and forth on tool calls, on discovery processes. So I think there's maybe a lot of research that can be done. Yeah.
Watson?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the directions I kind of feel like GraphQL has to like go in for us to like survive in all this, to be honest. I think operation generation is definitely one side of that, but I also think it's just like building the graph in general. One thing that has definitely resonated in a lot of the discussions I've had with like external audiences outside the GraphQL community has been like a graph representation of your APIs and really what the value that can provide inside of agentic development. And having an understanding of the graph is like very important for evolving the graph and things like that. And I think one of the things like we have to do as a community, we need to look at all the errors, all the things that come back from GraphQL. And I think we need to take a moment to like rethink them. Like the errors were written for humans and they were written for UIs. They weren't written for LMs and everything. But what I have found, if you do simple things like a validate tool that's actually validating a GraphQL operation, the errors that come back from that, it's really good at fixing those things within the GraphQL context. But, to Thor's point, it becomes a loop of a lot of tool calls inside of that process, no matter what you do. And I think this is something that we need to solve at the, protocol level. Because really, when I think of like how MCP got to be because they put lifecycle events around a GraphQL operations execution, essentially. Like that's really what they did. They put client event cycles around that. So now they know when like the connections close and when tools get updated. Like if we had something where you got an update when a PQ, we had some unique hash for, a trusted document at the GraphQL level, and we had events for those things being updated. That's a similar world. So I really think we got to do something at the foundation level to further that in generation for schema and operations.
All right. Pascal?
Yeah, so I can confirm a bit what Michael just said. Like we've dabbled around in operation generation, and we even have a comparison of different LLMs and ways of doing it and whatever. But it's actually surprisingly hard for LLMs at the moment to understand it, and the only way that we got like reasonable output is when we leave the schema and we try to do a semantic search on something which somehow shows the entity field relationship in a different way than the schema does. So actually leaving the schema and going away from the schema for operation generation and relationships between fields and parents and so on led to a way better result in generation. And I think that as a community, having an MCP server which helps in general, like build these index the schema correctly where we can collaborate is something which would be incredibly valuable, because that would be something that we can plug into any client in the front end, be it Urkel, React, Urkel Relay or Apollo, whatever, you name it. We can just plug this in and it will help immediately generate these queries. And then in later use, when we talk about server-to-server communication, whatever, these tools can just be reused to generate these queries. But just in our like, it's already like the time we did the evaluation is 2024, mid 2024. LLMs are really bad at GraphQL at the moment. That's just a fact.
All right. Good to know. Actually, I'll give a plug. I think Alexander is gonna demo something similar of a benchmark. Maybe in the last 10 minutes. We actually found it's pretty good. So I'm happy to dig into that. Yeah, Andre.
Sorry, I was as I raised my hand, I was trying to figure out like what the problem that we're actually trying to solve is. It sounds as though it's like just like, hey, how do you put together like a GraphQL query that like is actually valid? It feels like that's at the protocol level, it feels like if we say it's at the protocol level, then like it's already going to be slow, right? Because like the large language model is going to have to like make some like stupid RPC call, and it's going to be like, gosh, like the server is going to tell me that I did something wrong. That feels like it's slow. So like if you want to have like it feels like we already have an AST, right? Like, so we can say like, hey, you put together a query that's like not semantically constructed right. That feels like it's a thing that like the MCP can actually do, and like the feedback loop is going to be pretty quick. And you just have like the LM going and spinning its wheels and going like, yes, cool, I'm whatever. You're absolutely right, I'm wrong, and and it does that a bunch. And like at some point, it's going to like get to like do the actual good thing. I think to Pascal's point, that is such an interesting idea in terms of like, okay, in looking at the corpus for a large language model, like what is the place where you can say like, well, crap, what has like a relationship diagram in text that we can leverage, and like we can reformat like whatever GraphQL, like a schema to go like, oh, I totally get it that like a foo is related to a bar, and like there's many bases and there's a connection and there's blah blah blah. Like maybe there's like, I don't know, we have we convert stuff to dot files, and like that convinces the large language model that like that's how things are related. But okay, so like if I get it correctly, the thing that we're trying to figure out is like, in me getting a schema, is there tooling that we have like either on the client level to like make that the MCP go spin very fast and like figure out like have some error correction along the way? That feels like it's a client level concern. On the schema level, there's mostly how do we get the large language model to understand that the relationships exist, and then go from there. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was
and
just like
also
clarifying my thinking, and let me know if this
Yeah,
sounds wrong
there's
at all.
also the sizing problem. I think most of the production schema is just like, well, cause like slump if you just consume the entire tree. But
I
yeah,
think to your point, like that feels like I wouldn't stick like, I think the expectation initially for people was like, I'll just like stash the whole goddamn schema in context, because now we have like 1 million token context. And it's like, no, that will do precisely the wrong thing. It feels like agentic workflows are a lot better at that, because you get the error correction, because you get the speed, because it's not just like, oh cool, like the token gods are going to give me what I want.
Jerry?
I just want to confirm what you guys are saying. So when we're building a generic MCP server on top of SQL, and the average, I mean, we have weird customers, right? The average SQL customer has 1,000 tables with 1,000 columns, and when you add semantic description to every object and every field, the token pressure is unbelievable. It's the standard GraphQL schema is completely untenable, and so we had to come up with just a minimal schema so that we could pass that along with the ability to query the schema itself so that you could ask for only portions of it or only type names or to omit all of the semantic information, all kinds of things that the model will have to do to, and amazingly can dance like this and can ask for and slowly build out a large schema piece by piece. We just we couldn't do it any other way. Another interesting thing, by the way, it's frustrating because the demos that we build, that with the 10 tables and it's books and authors and it's so easy, and it's so unrelated to real life because for one, they don't have the semantic information, and for two, it's missing the other 900 objects in the database, and so it's just really difficult for our customers to even think about that. So we built a set of generic tools to sort of solve this problem that allow you to describe entities and then execute them. But I think that NL to GraphQL, generally speaking, is unrealistic in the real world, just because as at least the way that the schema is designed today, the pressure against normal models to be overwhelmed by the token context is impractical. It's beautiful in demos. It's beautiful in samples, and it is instantaneously broken when it goes into the real world. I would imagine that the dream world that Michael's building of persisted documents has to be the ultimate solution as we come to, like, when I'm building something and I'm giving a recommendation to American Airlines, like, it can't be an MCP server like we build in demos. It has to be like a fully structured, dedicated set of servers. And so, dedicated set of tools inside a single server, rather than a giant dynamic does it all sort of MCP server, which is incredibly unrealistic. Anyway, I'm just saying you guys are right. The schema needs some love, and we need to find a way to trickle it to a model. Otherwise, people will constantly be solving it another way like we did.
Yeah. And thank you so much for Jeff doing a time check. I think we have about 8 minutes left. So I will give everyone who raised their hand a chance to talk, but please summarize succinct. Also want to give Alex some time for the demo. Thank you so much. Abhinav?
Hi there. So I would just like to say some challenges that I faced while experimenting with MCP server and using building agentic system. So our backend system is built using GraphQL, so it's a fully GraphQL federated system. So while having that, we wanted to have the LLM agent use as little context as possible, so that we had a sort of a complex instructions to be followed for setting one after the other as a kind of sequential agent thing that we were trying to build. And we had issues with too much data in the context being, when we are passing the GraphQL schema as the context, it was a bit too much that was being built on, so that it causes much more hallucination than we expected. And then we tried defining using Apollo's MCP server, and just we could not get much customization. We tried using building a schema directive, a custom directive for defining a tool on each query, but that we could not use multiple agents, same query for multiple agents with different instructions or descriptions. So we currently finally tried set up using for each agent we are manually defining the tool, writing the instructions there, what it does, and also defining the operation file there itself. So that sort of a way is the compromise that we are currently doing. I don't know if that's the best option. So that's the challenge for some functions or some tools and some agents. we might need to only fetch a few fields in the query. For some, we might need to fetch the other fields also. It would be great if the agent could do it dynamically based on the user's context. If user had asked additional details also, instead of doing an additional tool, it could have fetched it in the same query itself. So that sort of thing would have been better in this case. I'm not sure about how we can proceed to implement that those things. Those were the challenges that I had faced recently.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes. I just quickly wanted to resonate with what Andre said, is that we like quickly validate like if the query is correct or not from the LM formulation. And in that direction, I just briefly want to mention that like good error description, but not like human description, but like maybe on like a token level issuing like what query fields were wrong, so that like LMs can like structured output only for those wrong tokens and not directly reformulate the whole query. And in that sense, maybe the error message wouldn't just provide like which like token level issues are in the query, but just provide additional information that is might helpful, that not exactly a new tool call needs to be invoked, but additional information on like how to best interpret that. So yeah, I think there could be a lot of things that could be done in the schema design.
Yep. So, Jans?
Thank you. So we're heavily investigating into the topic of operation generation, and one of the biggest problems we found is documentation or the lack of. And another problem with documentation is you have descriptions and fields and types, and people put something there for developers, not for LLMs, not for an LLM to build a good query. So most of the time the information is missing, and if it's there, it's actually the wrong information, because you need to tell an LLM how things link together, and it needs other information than human, because a human can make these connections, an LLM cannot. You need to help it. So that's one part. And the other part is, you earlier mentioned, or someone mentioned, it's easy, or LLMs can build queries easily. One very big problem we found is, if you have a field that lives on multiple types, and it's kind of like very similar. So that means in your graph, there can be many paths to actually get the field. Which one is the right path? And if an LLM picks one and it doesn't pick two, will you ever know? So you're actually wrong, but you don't know. So I think it's kind of like extremely naive to say, oh, we give an LLM schema and we see what happens. So yeah, and I think we need to be very, very careful. And I like to close with, maybe like generating queries is not even like, you know, we don't always need to use GraphQL or LLM to solve all our problems. Maybe creating good GraphQL queries is not an LLM problem. Maybe it's a completely separate problem, and maybe it shouldn't be even be solved in MCP. Maybe in MCP there should be one single tool that calls another service that knows how to build a query, and that might somewhere in the chain use a little bit of LLM. But we figured out that mostly like generating queries is actually not a very big LLM problem. LLM is kind of like the very last step when you have solved all problems.
Also a very interesting idea. All right, I think I can summarize a lot of the things we want to solve here. So schema reduction, and then like error handling, actually like error consumption, improving its authorization of the GraphQL code. And then also like we can explore if there are non-LLM method or solutions that add like the query construction. So yeah, as Uri mentioned, we'll just keep them as issues there, and then we'll come back later. I think they will give us some of the time to think about it. I have 1 minute left, but Alex, off you go.
TLDR, Claude's good, GPT-5 is a little bit less good, the GPT 4.1 is worse. Okay, so what do you want to find out? I want to find out like how different models, how good they are at running GraphQL queries, right? So QA basically generated a schema that's of a decent complexity. So we've got interfaces that can have like implement other interfaces, type unions, and then like other stuff. And then we generated some prompts, right? And the prompts basically have 3 levels. We went through like a very specific prompt where we say, generate this thing, and you're going to generate it by like returning this object, if this and that, and you're going to like return exactly 5 objects, for example. So that's what we call the specific prompt. And then we have like a more normal one, which just says, okay, you're going to generate this. And then we have what the user would say, which is, for example, in our schema, it was like hotels and restaurants, so on and so forth. And the user prompt would be, find me the hotels near me, right? Something like that. So we basically then benchmarked these prompts against ChatGPT 4.1, also GPT 4.1, GPT-5, and Claude 4. And it's kind of like what you would expect, right? So the more specific you get, the better the LLM does. So they basically all could generate queries that adhere to this eval that we've done. And the eval was, we compared our target query, so along with the prompts, with what the LLM generated, and we compared them basically using string matching, right? Using similarity. And if it's above like 0.7 from a 0 to 1 scale, then we count that as passing, right? So it's a very good method, super, super raw. And as I mentioned, they all like passed these results. So all the 3 models passed for the specific prompt, right? As we get down further, so if I go to the extreme, to the user, it gets a bit worse. So it gets like, they still did pretty well. So we're talking about like 80 to 90% range, but it's not 100%, right? But in general, yeah, it worked relatively well. The queries kind of look okay. They kind of look similar to what we expected, but we don't really know if they're valid according to the schema, right? So I think that's something we wanted to ask from the community, is basically community driven graders, so that we can actually like basically have these evals be sure that the query that's generated, number one, does it actually pass the schema? So is it valid against the schema? And the fields that are generated by the query, how do they compare to the fields that we expect on the expected query? Does that make sense? How do I do? 2 minutes, okay.
Yeah, and then you have Watson and me donated 1 minute each, so you're right on time. So yeah, I think we will publish the fake schemas that we created. It's about 100 types, and then some of the types actually have 50 or so fields. So I would say it's complicated enough, but definitely not production grade. And we'll also publish that set of 16 questions. It's actually each of the question, as Alex said, we have the very specific to like kind of what an end user would ask. And then we'll publish that as a benchmark set for anyone to use here. And then we can follow up from there. Lots of action items. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming into this working group today. I definitely learned a lot, have a lot of things to do. Let's keep on working on it using the GitHub and using the issues. With that being said, I think we can wrap up. Anything else we should add, Benji? Or Benji's, it's not even, oh, Benji's still here.
No, I think that's it. So good.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you guys next month.
See you.
Yeah.
See you then.